probably discuss that as well. So with that, let me start my presentation with the topic. And I specifically selected this topic because you might be hearing a lot of discussion in the industry, especially in agriculture, going on towards agri-tech. And a lot of people are talking about it. A lot of investors are talking about it. A lot of opportunities are being created in agri-tech. And so when I looked at it in the beginning, various articles, various news that is coming in agri-tech, I thought it is very important for us to really understand what is agri-tech. And then, then whether it is, whether, we want to start something in agri-tech, or we want to join an agri-tech institute or a firm or a company, or we want to analyze agri-tech as a market, it is very important to have a very good understanding about the entire agri-tech industry. So that was the reason for selecting this talk. And so once I explain about agri-tech, I'll just give you a brief agenda of the entire presentation. After we have spoken about agri-tech, we will also take a case study and probably Fasal's case study of how we built Fasal, and how it plays a very important role in this entire agriculture or the new innovation which is happening, where we are categorizing everything in form of agri-tech. So with this, I think Krishna has already shared a lot of things about me. This is really me. I graduated from IIIT Bangalore in 2014. Before that, I was actually studied with Krishna earlier. So I know him from college days. I founded a startup in tech media sector with my brother. I took an exit from it last year when I started, last year when I started Fasal. And Fasal team and founders were also being selected for Forbes and 30 under 30 as a promising startup which is changing the landscape of agriculture in India. So that's really about me. Now, if you look at if you look at news these days, you'll hear a lot about agri-tech. So previously, you must be hearing a lot about fintech, health tech, and a lot of e-commerce news. But if you look at today, everybody is talking about agri-tech. It is not just the government or the policymaker, but it is also various new investment firms that is coming up and specifically setting up a fund for agri-tech companies. And as per NASSCOM report that they have published in 2019, which is called Emerging Tech in India, agri-tech was one of the prominent field which was coming up, and there were close to 450 startups that started in last couple of years in this segment, and there were close to 248 million of funding has been received. Now, this report was really published at the end of 2019. The actual funding so far that has happened in agri-tech after, let's say if you compare when the report was published until today, it is crossing 500 million in terms of funding. And agri-tech is seeing a phenomenal growth of more than 25%. So right now, I think it is 30-35%. When the report was published, it was 25% growth, which was observed. Now, with this rise, what is the reason for this rise? How agri-tech became so prominent that everybody started talking about it, and we see so many growth potential in agri-tech. If you just go back a little in time and see, how different technologies have evolved over a period of time, you'll find that in agriculture, most of the innovation which has happened in last decade, what happened around machinery. We saw good machines coming up, which is helping farmers, good tractors coming up, let's say good sprayers coming up. But there were a lot of information asymmetry that existed in agriculture market. Now, information asymmetry also existed because there was no infrastructure which allowed farmers who are living in a rural area to connect to the other farmer or the market who is very far away from him. With the likes of information technology evolvement and with the likes of penetration of cellular companies like Jio, which enabled everybody to get connected to internet and start using digital platforms, is also one reason how agri-tech started coming into picture. How companies who are providing information technology or providing technology specifically related to information and software are now now become accessible for people who are even living in rural areas. So those were, large factors which created this entire evolution of agri-tech. Now, as agri-tech evolved, or as agri-tech is looked at, it's really an umbrella term. So whenever you hear about agri-tech, it is very important that we understand, or we know how to categorize it into niche segments. And like the one which I'm showing here is my own way of categorizing agri-tech startups, or the entire agri-tech umbrella into, various niche segments in which various startups fall in. And it is also important because this is how you will find out which particular segment is of interest to you, whether you want to start a company or you want to join an organization. So it is very important to understand. Now, if you look at this entire farm to fork agri value chain, it is predominantly classified into 5 parts. And those 5 predominant niche segments are pre-sowing stage, sowing stage, crop growth stage, harvest stage, and post-harvest stage. Now, it is very important to understand here all these stages, because if you look at the crop growth stage, that is the stage where any farmer spends most of his time, money, energy in the field. The stages prior to crop growth stage, which is pre-sowing and sowing stage, are very short duration. So in pre-sowing stage, you will see startups who are providing soil testing. You might have heard in news of Krishi Tantra got funding from Omnivore and really good investors few days back, just 2-3 days back. They operate in a pre-sowing stage. So you do soil testing mostly before you sow seed, and then probably some of the time in the mid-season as well. But predominantly, you always do soil testing or any land preparation activities before sowing your seed. And then you will find the startups who operate in sowing stage. So all the machinery startup, of course, machinery startup go along with crop growth stage, but predominantly, again, in sowing stage is where you see a lot of machinery input startups or sowing advisory related startups are coming up. Now, when you move on to crop growth stage, you will see most of the companies who are providing any solution or service in this stage are those companies who spend probably the longer time with farmer in terms of their product or solution or technology, because this is the time, and this is very, very tough also. I mean, crop growth stage is the extremely sensitive stage for this value chain, because as we know, most of the time resource and money gets spent here. And it becomes very difficult also to operate in this space, because there's a lot of dynamics. It's not just 1-2 day or a week. It's just the entire crop season. It can go from 3 months to probably a year. And after that, if you look at harvest stage and post harvest stage, so in harvest stage, again, you will see a lot of cold chain startups, a lot of startups which provide yield management or yield prediction, startups which provide traceability, and again, traceability follows on to post harvest also. And in post harvest, you'll see most of the supply chain companies or market linkage company or agri marketplaces. So this is how it has been categorized. And again, post harvest is a very shortest cycle in which once the crop is harvested, you have to put it in market and get it consumed. Otherwise, there'll be loss. So all the startup now you have come across, you can effectively, if you look at it, you can categorize into one of these 5 niche segments. And if you look at crop growth specifically, where we belong to, and I'll give you probably a detailed explanation how we come into crop growth stage and what we do. You will also find that this is the stage which links the other 2 stages, and then it has the opportunity to become tech enabler for the 2 stages prior to it and the 2 stages later to it. So where Fasal operates, and Fasal has the opportunity to go beyond crop growth stage, and not get into the post harvest or harvest stage, but provide them a technology enabler. So for example, let's say if there is a company, of course you would know that there's a lot of company in post harvest stage. One of them is Ninja Cart, very well known company in post harvest stage. Now companies like Ninja Cart rely on quality and information from where they want to do procurement. Now it becomes very important for them to get this information, and all the startups which are working in crop growth stage are the one who has this information, and they can become sort of a data platform or a enabler to provide such information. So it is a very important stage where we operate in. Now with this, I would like to really tell you more about Fasal. And before that, again, if you look at the investment landscape published by EC Funder in 2019 end, the investment which has happened largely is around the harvest and post-harvest. But if you see the, all the companies who are coming in the blue segment, you will find that this is where the innovation has started catching up, because this space where you see 4% to 2% to 1% funding is the stage which is now have started coming up, and it started coming up really big, because they are enabling all other companies in different stages to make their decision. And that's where we have started seeing increase in funding, because this stage does not even existed earlier. So with this, I would like to tell you more about Fasal and what exactly we do. Probably it can be taken as a case study also, with what kind of innovation is happening in agri-tech space, and how we position ourselves, how we create value, and how we make an impact. So about Fasal is essentially a precision agriculture technology company that provides farm specific, crop stage specific actionable advisories to farmer to help them grow more, grow better. You can think of Fasal as your personal agronomist. The only difference is we are present on the farm 24/7 and help you understand or help you make any decision that you would like to do on your farm, because your consultant might come in 15 days or 1 month, but Fasal is available 24/7. We are also listed as one of the top 6 startups in India that are revolutionizing agriculture by Analytics India magazine. And so again, to tell you how it all started, as Krishna was mentioning, that my father is also a farmer, and I had seen him struggle, so I decided not to do farming and become engineer, but then realized that there's a lot of problems which we can actually solve going back to agriculture, but with whatever skill set which we have gathered in while studying engineering or doing or building a skill in software industry. And so it all started with understanding the problem of the idea that we have is we wanted to solve farmers' problem, and we wanted to help them make data-driven decision. Because what we had seen as farmer, if you might be hearing a lot of news about things gets wasted or climate change is happening. There's a lot of rain, drought, and other aspects. These are the natural calamities, but apart from this, farmer still struggles to make proper decisions. He goes and irrigates his field, and then it rains. It just too much water, and it becomes over irrigation problem. Leaching happens. He goes and sprays, and then if it rains, then spray washes away, and that is also not useful. So we wanted to solve that problem, and we started researching about it in a greater detail, because whenever you want to tackle a problem, the first thing that you begin with is you have to identify the core problem and what you're going to solve. Because if you look at problems in a very generic way, then there's no end to problems. You'll find 100 problems, but then you have to identify those important 3 or 4 problems which basically solves 80% of the which provides 80% of the solution. And you have to identify those 70 or those problems which only constitute 20, so that you focus on the one which provides you 80% of the solution, and then later on you can expand to provide 100%. So the one which the way we looked at is we found that there is a lot of uncertainty or guesswork in decision making, and because of which there's low productivity, because all the resources which has been utilized at the farm were going for a waste. There was no proper information to to utilize even resources. So if I have to irrigate or if I have to fertigate, nobody is there to tell me how much I really need to do, for and at which time I need to do that. So all these are very important factors. Of course, you would be knowing that agriculture is really a science, and if it is a science, then there should of course be some data to validate your logic. But if you look at how farmers do agriculture, you realize that there's no really logic. It's all guesswork, intuition, traditional wisdom which has been used. And then because of all the unnecessary overutilization of resource, there's high input cost in farming, because we go and overutilize or over spray our field, which leads to other major problems in terms of high residue limit in a crop, high getting lower value in the market. So these are the problems that we had identified, and it is also very important to identify the consequences of the problem, because that's when you will realize whether the problem that you have selected is actually going to solve or going to create a larger impact or not. Because if it is not going to create a larger impact, there are two things which, there are two ways to think about building a startup. Your startup should either save money or make money. If there is a startup which is saving time or doing something else, then, it is not feasible, because we have enough time, we can spend time, but we cannot, but if there's a startup which is saving money or making money, is the one which really survives. So you have to understand the impact of the problem you're going to solve. The impact that Fasal identified was because of the heavy use of spray, because most of the time farmers just spray out of fear. If, let's say if it is a grape crop, if it is a season going on, if it is a chili crop, they spray for all the possible disease that can happen in that. Because they are afraid that, if they don't spray, then they might just lose the entire crop. But that is not right. Not necessarily the disease will happen, because there are science behind it, and there are reasons how disease propagates. So those were the problems that we identified, and the impact of it is really high, because the more you spray, the lesser quality you will get, the higher residue you will get, and you're not able to export. And India is one example of that. We are largest producer of some of the commodities in the world, but our export ratio is less than 1.5%. That's not at all good. India uses most of the fresh water. Around 80-85% is being utilized in agriculture. And most of it, if you look at, goes for a waste, because most of the time we tend to over irrigate, and water is also available as a commodity, which is now we have started seeing the problems of this easily available resource. We are very concerned about water uses. So that was one of the another important aspects which we wanted to address. The third and another very significant aspect, another consequences of the problems that we had identified was the production ratio. So if you look at a farmer in Gujarat and Bihar, both they are major producers of potato, but Bihar produces 35% less potato than Gujarat, despite having double of the land size. The reason for that is because their practices are not well. They are of course, weather and soil is one definite criteria, but but you can still overcome if you have the right practices in place. So these were the consequences of the problems that we identified, and then we started thinking about how we want to build solution. Now there are, of course, once you have identified the problem right, once you have a fair understanding of market, once you have fair understanding of all the consequences of the problems and the impact it can create, then you start looking for, what is a solution. Now, when we started looking for, we had options to go for satellite, we had options to go for drones, but then we decided that, we are going to build a farm level IoT device, which will collect data and send the data to a cloud platform, from where we will have algorithms running and monitoring the farm 24/7 and telling farmer when they need to spray precisely for which disease. What are the what is the chances for that disease to happen in, let's say, next 3-4 days. So we inform our customers in advance, and then weather prediction becomes very important. Now if you look at weather predictions, we have hardly 5,000 weather stations by IMD, the Indian Meteorological Department. That's not even sufficient for Bangalore alone. Forget about the entire India. So what we provide is, we provide these mini stations which also provide farm level weather prediction. So it can rain at my farm, but 5 kilometers away, it might not rain. And that's the real scenario. That's really what happens. So Fasal does that. Fasal provides a very hyper local weather forecast for that particular farm in a vicinity of, 1 or 2 acres or 3 acres. Then we also tell farmers about very precisely when to irrigate, how much to irrigate, because irrigation is one important criteria for crop quality, crop growth, disease and pest attack. If your crop is healthy, if you're eating right, of course you will always be healthy. But if you're not eating and drinking right, your immunity will decrease and you'll have a lot of disease. So there's a lot of problem you would already know about irrigation, and we tell farmers when they need to irrigate and exactly how much they need to irrigate. The kind of advisories they get from Fasal is like, you have to irrigate 5 liters per plant at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So this is the kind of advisories that they get, so that they can highly optimize their irrigation and have a better produce, higher yield, better quality. We also tell them when and how much to fertigate and what could be the ratio of the fertilizers they want to use, because all those things are now data driven and being measured actively. So this is how we built a solution. And again, when you build a solution, sometimes it looks like it is very sophisticated, but if you really look at how Fasal has built a solution, Fasal is available in all the regional languages. I've shown here English for for our talk and understanding, but it is available in all the language. And the way farmer gets to know about the information which we convey is in a very consumable form. So of course you will see there's a data shown here, there's data shown in the second slide, but this is not what he sees. He sees the third and the most important thing. He gets to know what is going to happen in his farm and whether he has taken the necessary action that is needed or not. So this is in a very simple way. It can be on a app, it can be on SMS, it can be on whatever, WhatsApp, whatever he's using. So again, this is how Fasal works. There's a IoT station with sensors which we deploy in the field, which collects data, which goes to a cloud server, and then we have experts and agri researchers who understands this data, who understand the crop, who understand disease, pest, or weather, and then build algorithms which tells farmer what they need to do on their farm. And this is all automated. Now, so of course you found the solution, you found the consequences, you defined what you want to build, and then you finally built it. After you built it, you have to do a product market fit, and you have to do value proposition. And until unless it, as I told you, until unless your solution makes money or saves money, nobody is looking for the solution which saves time. So it has to save some money or or make some money. So this is what Fasal does. It helps farmer in terms of decrease in water uses, almost 20 to 30%. Which also helps in terms of electrical saving, motor wear and tear, and optimal use and timing. And the after effect of the water saving or the proper irrigation is that your crop is more healthy, your yield has already increased. We have also seen up to 25% decrease in sprays, which effectively helps you bring down the residue level to a limit which is not breached by the MSR limit set by different countries. So there's the MSR limit, which is minimum limit every country has set. And until and unless your produce is below that limit, the country will reject your whatever assignment or consignment you have sent to them. And this is where Indian farmers suffer a lot, because they produce a lot and they cannot export it, and then it gets consumed in domestic market, and it just changed the entire pricing in various mandis. So these were some of the issues which were larger, but it required a really deeper understanding to solve it. Apart from this, you see an increase in production because you have managed disease well. You have managed the after effect is that you see higher yield in your production, and also a better quality of crop. So with this, this is how I just put up a case study of Fasal. This is how we decided to build Fasal. We identified the problem, we provided a solution, and then we did a value proposition, and then took the solution to the larger masses. What we are going to do next, we believe that innovation in agriculture is something which needs to drive the next change which is happening. And for that, we are now very soon launching a new version of our IoT solution, which can be accessible and available to any farmer in the world. Right now, the solution, or if you look at the kind of, if you look at this, it probably required some effort to go into the field and install it. But the one which we are now going to bring is something which is revolutionary in itself. It is very handy to use. You can just go to a field, take it out from the box, and deploy it and use it, and it can be shipped worldwide. So that's our really next plan. And with this, I would really like to thank you for listening.